Again, time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production, and here we are. It's the off-season. This is Wednesday, March 20th. It is the first day of spring, and all kinds of stuff going on in the NFL. We'll go ahead and break everything down for you. What are the free agent signings? Who's still out there? Do we have new powerhouses blooming, especially in the AFC, with the Browns and the Jets making big, huge moves, and what's going on with the Dolphins situation at quarterback? All this and a lot more, but let's go ahead and break everything down. I do not work alone here. As everyone knows, I do enlist the help of the very, very best. So always proud to introduce my co-host. He is a proud graduate of Rutgers University, my favorite East Coast intellectual. And by the way, I know some of you already follow him on Twitter, and if not, you should be. You can follow him at Chris L. Sports. And here he is, the pride of New Jersey, but now somewhere in an undisclosed location in beautiful, sunny, rainy, hailing Southern California, none other than Chris Lardieri. Hey, Chris, what's up out there, man?
Charles, as always, great introduction. Thank you. It's good to be back after month-plus hiatus after that snooze fest in the Super Bowl. At least the NFL always gives us something to talk about, even in the off-season.
Yeah, absolutely do. And, hey, after your boy, we'll talk about your Giants. First, your boy, Dave Gettleman says, a couple weeks after, he says, we did not sign Odell just to trade him. And, OBJ winds up now, he's a member of the Cleveland Browns. And I think a brilliant move here by Cleveland, because now they've got OBJ on one side, they'll have Jarvis Landry on the other. And their wide receivers coach is the same guy who coached the two when they were a pair at LSU.
Yeah, well, putting my podcasting/journalist hat on, I will say, for the Giants, separate of Gettleman, who, much like his name was in Congress for many years, the most dangerous place in Washington was in between Tamara and Chuck Schumer. I think I can say the same about Dave Gettleman. This guy loves giving interviews, but also loves contradicting himself. But if we were to believe him at his word, and that he got his socks knocked off by this offer from John Dorsey of the Browns, and comparing it just to the Antonio Brown trade, the Raiders, regardless of what you think of the trade or not,
right,
next to nothing compared to what the Giants received for OBJ. So let's just say, all right, they needed this. They had pulled the plug on OBJ, despite what everyone says. They're going to deal with the cap money for 1 year, say 2 years. Right? On paper, you get a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and you get a replacement safety in Jabril Peppers for Landon Collins.
Right.
Not the franchise. Looks pretty good, right? But the fan in me and the skeptic says, I've got little or no faith in Dave Gettleman. This guy's a blowhard. He can't even keep track of his own BS. And a guy who says you can rebuild and win at the same time. I mean, sounds to me about as, I don't know, viable as a solar ice cube. I really don't know, but I have little faith in the guy with his drafting skills. I feel Saquon fell to them last year. Don't get me wrong, I like the pick, but I don't know what the plan is. They haven't addressed Eli. Now he says they will in the draft. But honestly, Charles, I'm kind of at my wit's end. I'm on the fence. If Gettleman did a similar thing with Josh Norman, they pulled the franchise tag and let him walk a few years ago.
Right.
This hard-nosed, old-school mentality, get off my lawn type is my impression of him. So I really don't know what to think. If the Giants are rebuilding, more power to them. They better get a quarterback. You're not going to get another talent like OBJ. That said, they made it to one playoff game and didn't win with him. So I'm all over the place. I guess I'm just a walking contradiction. But the fan in me says I have no faith in Dave Gettleman, but from a bigger picture perspective, I think it could be a win-win for the Giants and the Browns long term.
Well, when we look at it, they've got who should be the most dynamic running back in the league, Saquon Barkley. So maybe it's going from, instead of stretching the field, maybe it's going to be 3 to 6 yards per play and a cloud of dust, and every now and then a crossing route that Eli can throw, and it'll be just kind of one of those, not the most exciting offense in the world, but maybe effective. So if they can play ball control, who knows what might go on there.
Yeah, at this point, I think I have a little more respect for what the Dolphins are doing. Let's bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick. We're going to be coach. We're going to be patient with him. We're going to tank this season and hope we get the first draft pick or near the top and get us a quarterback like Tua from Alabama. I mean, there's no fronting there. We know what they're doing. The Giants are they're a contending rebuilder. How about that?
Yeah, there we go. And it seems like with the whole Eli situation, it's just kind of strange. And I've always been kind of a little bit of a closet fan of Eli, but I don't really understand. Do they even have a plan beyond him? It doesn't seem like he's the one holding anything up there. So, is there just some type of fear that if they move on from the best quarterback that really that franchise ever saw, unless you go back to Y.A. Tittle, I guess, but are they just kind of afraid to move on? They don't know how to delicately move on from the Eli Manning era. That's what it really seems like.
It does, and we have our good friend, the worst football coach in the history of New York. Well, I mean, either he or Rich Kotite, Ben McAdoo, who mishandled the situation 2 years ago, and the public outcry and firestorm when Eli was benched and streaking.
Well, bench for Geno Smith. That was weird.
Didn't even bother seeing if Davis Webb was worth it, or they ended up cutting anyway. But I think the firestorm from that has left them a little shell-shocked, and maybe they've got some handshake agreement with Eli with like, all right, when you're ready to go on your own terms, we'll support it, but kind of give us a timeline so we know when to pick a quarterback. I mean, a lot of posturing, double talk going on here. Look, I will forever be a fan of Eli, given his 2 tremendous Super Bowl victories over the Patriots, but that said, the guy's finished. He's got no arm strength. He's not the same quarterback he was. His decision-making leaves a lot of people tired. I don't know if he thinks he can make the throws he once did, but they need to address it. I mean, that's the same thing I'd say about the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger, right?
Right.
Almost a playoff team, but they have no one behind him either, and that's another organization that, you would think had their stuff together for many, many decades. They're as chaotic as the Giants right now.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and you got to remember, they lost, tight end Jesse James. He's gone to Detroit now. Not only that, but, Antonio Brown, as we know, he went to Oakland, which was a steal for a 3rd and a 5th rounder. And Le'Veon Bell, now he's going to be with the Jets. So, you know what? I'll tell you what, for those who are a fan of the run game, they don't do it anywhere any better than right there in New York. Whether you like Saquon Barkley or Le'Veon Bell, they're right there and they play in the same stadium.
Yeah, you're going to have 2 good running backs to look forward to and some questionable quarterback play.
There we go. Now, questionable quarterback play. Let's talk about quarterbacks. Joe Flacco, he goes to Denver for a 4th round pick. Nick Foles is going to Jacksonville. He gets a 4-year deal for $88 million. We already talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's going to be the main man there, main signal caller there in Miami, which me as a Dolphins fan, everyone knows that, but I don't know. I'm okay with the whole Fitzpatrick thing. I wanted to move away from Ryan Tannehill, so if we got to do another Ryan, okay, we get Ryan Fitzpatrick instead. At least it's going to be exciting football. I'll just say that. The Dolphins, I'm sure they're going to lose plenty of games. They'll probably be lucky to get 6 or 7 wins next year. But with Fitzpatrick under center, he's going to give you one every single week.
He is. And the guy always plays hard. The guy's always never afraid to sling the ball. He plays well in streaks, as we saw in Tampa this past.
Right.
So, there are far worse quarterbacks to have. I mean, honestly, I think getting Fitzpatrick and getting rid of Tannehill, I mean, worst case scenario, that's a wash. If anything, it might even be a step up the way Tannehill played posted.
Right.
So, really not that bad. It's just he's older. He's not the long-term solution. Kind of a placeholder.
Right, and the best thing about this is that Fitzpatrick, we say he plays hard, he gives it his all. I think he plays to the best of his ability, which, may be limited or whatnot. But the best thing is he knows his place in the league now. This is the 8th team that he's been on. So he understands that it's not going to be about holding them up for money or how do they move on from the Ryan Fitzpatrick era or anything like that. He's there to do his thing in Miami and then, probably move on.
So would you say he's the Steve DeBerg of his time?
I think he is the Steve DeBerg. I would say Earl Morrall, but I think Earl Morrall had a little bit more, he had some more talent. And Earl Morrall did actually take the Dolphins through that undefeated season in '72 before Bob Greasy returned in the playoffs.
Yeah, let's not forget his days with the Baltimore Colts.
Yep. Absolutely. And then you had another quarterback who was like Earl Morrall, was Don Strock, who came in later on. And the Dolphins had Wood Strock when they had David Woodley and Don Strock. But don't get me started on Dolphins history, or I will just pretty much never stop. Okay, so let's go ahead and, we'll flip the page here. Now, as we know, Kareem Hunt, he got in trouble, punching someone out in a hotel lobby. Okay, so he gets cut by the Chiefs. And here's something I think is a real problem here in the NFL. Not just the personal conduct, but he gets cut by the Chiefs, but then he gets picked up by the Browns, and he just received an 8-game suspension. So we'll see him back, in week 9, playing with the Browns. The Browns have revamped offense. Baker Mayfield will be a quarterback, wide receiver tandem of Landry and OBJ. But Kareem Hunt will bring his dynamic game, which he has it, talking about his game on the field, to Cleveland. Now, just recently, we had Tyreek Hill, who's being investigated now with, I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but let's just say it turns out on the bad side for him. Let's say if Tyreek Hill winds up getting cut by the Chiefs, but still, he can play football later on at some point, even if he sits out a whole year. He can still play football. So here's the problem I have with the NFL and their policy is, when you look at Tyreek Hill, you look at Kareem Hunt, or any others when it comes to these policies, it's like, okay, here's your punishment. You can go on and continue after 6 months or whatever, making more money than 99% of all the Americans. You just can't do it in Kansas City. So when it comes down to it, who really got punished in this whole thing? It's the Chiefs, who get their offense gutted because of off-field activities, but those guys who are involved in those activities can still make their millions that they would have made in Kansas City, but they just have to make it somewhere else.
Yeah, I guess the key is to not release a player who like a Kareem Hunt who gets caught punching a woman, and write out the PR storm and let the player serve a suspension or go to his counseling, whatever the case is. Then hope, like everything else in America, the dust settles or it blows over, whatever the case is.
Right.
The Chiefs did the right thing by cutting him. The Ravens did the right thing by cutting Ray Rice, but
right.
they're out of running back, so it really is a double-edged sword now. If it's a case of like a Randy Gregory with the Cowboys, and it's buyer beware, and we had a history, then shame on you. But really, I don't know if there was anything out there in the public about Kareem Hunt. Tariq Hill had some issues in college. But,
right.
He's been there have been no issues during his tenure with the Chiefs. So yeah, it's I guess at this point, is there going to be a team that says, we support his efforts to reinstate his life and we condone his behavior? I guess kind of like Bob Kraft, right? If the Patriots stand by him and, there are no rules for owners committing crimes, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much of a crime it is to get a tuggy or a Florida strip ball. It's just kind of tacky when you're a multi-billionaire. But anyway, the latest I saw, though, on Kraft is that they're willing to drop the charges. And this is a strange thing because it's one thing to plead no contest, but they're willing to drop the charges if he's willing to admit that had the case gone to trial, he would have been found guilty.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. That's a first. I mean,
yeah.
Sort of lethal, putting the gun to his head of sorts. But regardless, whether you think it's a crime or not, the guy got arrested for
right.
in the state of Florida, and players have a personal conduct policy.
Yeah.
That, owner, and it's not just Bob Kraft.
Well, I remember Irsay got in trouble when he was.
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
Popping pills or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There have been other owners. Jerry Jones allegedly having issues with a woman, or I don't know. I forget what it was. There was pictures of him with a woman. Cherry Richardson, basically
right.
being accused of sexual harassment, and he just went and sold the team, so nothing happened to him. So yeah, there is a double standard there.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and move on here. So more player moves. We have to wonder, and one of the things I talk about on the show a lot is I talk about having to win in your window. and when it's your time, you got to maximize it. So we look at the Chiefs. It looks like, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, dynamic to watch. And also the Chiefs lost their other receiver, not just Tyreek Hill, who we'll see. But anyways, they may have difficulty getting back, and Justin Houston, we'll see what happens with him. Eric Berry, he's gone now. They did not pick up his option, so we'll see what happens with that. But in the NFC, New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara, no more of the Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram tandem there, as Ingram has now moved on to Baltimore. So, what is Kamara going to do now with, can he be both the hammer and the sledge in that backfield for the New Orleans Saints? And also, how many seasons does Drew Brees have left in him? It looks like they should have been in the Super Bowl this year, and they're going to have a devil of a time getting back.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the one thing. So much mobility, and I know with the salary cap and everything, there are ways to finagle and manage the cap to where you're up against it, and deferring money. I mean, you look at already what the Bears did with Khalil Mack. They converted some of his money to a bonus to make room. It's very hard to keep a team together in this league, and to keep your key players that are about to become free agents good. I mean, you can franchise them at some point, but it's really difficult to do. You've always got to be retooling, and the draft becomes even more important. So I do think the Saints, even in that division, they still got a legit shot to win it, but how much will they miss Ingram? I mean, they didn't seem to miss too much of a beat when he was suspended, but remains to be seen. The Chiefs, however, I got to agree with you. They went and traded D Ford to the 49ers.
Right.
Really was an up-and-comer on the defense, separate of that terrible offsides call off game against the Patriots. Likely cost them a shot at the Super Bowl, but you've got to retool on the fly, and you've got to find guys that can play. And I think where chiefs are made and where divisions and even titles are won, this week or two after the big free agent frenzy with the big names and the big dollar amounts, where you can go pick up a guy or two who may not cost as much. I mean, even you look at Earl Thomas, I know he's coming off injuries, but it was kind of a little bit of a lag, and then he was signed towards the end of it. He may end up being a key contributor to the Ravens now that Eric Weddle left. Look at the Rams. They lost Ndamukong Suh, LaMarcus Joyner. They retooled getting Eric Weddle and Clay Matthews and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You get a guy maybe he's at the latter point of his career, sign him to a 2-year incentive-laden deal, and maybe it pays dividends for you. But it's those role players or even those guys kind of behind the scenes that make the difference. And if you're going to tie up a lot of your money with a quarterback or a running back or a top left tackle, you need these role players to win. I think the Patriots show time and again.
Yeah, they do, because their offensive tackle, injured last year, so they just pick someone up and, cut him at the end of the season. But now they picked up Michael Bennett, a linebacker who played last year in Philadelphia. So we'll see what they're able to do. I just think the Patriots, I think their tracking of players is just second to none, because they're always, when we look at it, they have all these holes, and it seems like patchwork, but they're always signing someone off of, someone else's practice squad, signing free agents, guys who were waived, and all this kind of stuff. And they're not big names or anything, but I think that they keep track of anyone who was pretty much on their draft board, and then they just track them through the league. So they always know who's a pretty good player, even though they may wash out with another team, but that team could have a terrible system going.
Absolutely, and who knows? Maybe the player to get along with it.
Right.
The head coach. It's definitely a system. I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of almost like a Moneyball approach, where Belichick's got this hidden way of evaluating what he looks for, guys that fit his mold, and even dating back to the Giants. I mean, you look at Carl Banks. He was a good linebacker coming out of college, but I feel as though Belichick made him into just an excellent one, kind of an unheralded one.
Right.
You even look what Junior Seau, everyone thought his career was over, and he had a few nice years at the tail end with the Patriots, including that one undefeated season. So, yeah, I mean, he definitely knows there's a certain mold that he's looking for. And what's funny, on the flip side, I feel as though the Lions with Matt Patricia are just trying to get all those guys that were previously with New England. Interesting too.
Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, we'll see. I like what Baltimore is, we talked about them, but the way they're kind of retooling. Terrell Suggs going to Arizona. Whoever thought we'd see T-Sizzle in anything but purple?
Agreed.
Yeah.
I get he's coming home, an ASU guy. Yeah, really, really surprising. But, there's, it's just the nature of the beast now with free agency. If you're, my son had an OBJ jersey. Luckily, he's outgrown it now. But you just don't think, and you get a jersey of a superstar receiver or AP with the Steelers. You really don't think these guys will ever be traded. But anything can happen. I mean, for me, I'm dating myself, but when Wayne Gretzky got traded to the Kings from Edmonton, that was kind of the beginning of a trend, I'd say, right? Superstars were even able to be traded.
August 9th, 1988. I remember that day well. In fact, I didn't find out until the next day, even though it happened in the afternoon, but because there was no internet or anything, I didn't find out until I got to work the next day, and someone said the Kings got Gretzky. I ran to the newsstand and grabbed the LA Times. And that's how I found out about it. So it went a full, at least 12, 14 hours since it happened that I didn't even know about it. Because back then, no alerts on the phone, no nothing. So if you didn't see the news that night, you just didn't see it.
Yep, those were the days.
Okay, so there we go. Just kind of get you caught up, and also we'll be doing a show probably right before or right after the draft. The draft is on April 25th. One thing we have to talk about here, first, of course, in the draft, we're going to watch the Arizona Cardinals pick Kyler Murray, and we'll get to see if that little, we'll go ahead and call him a little popcorn shrimp, can actually get it done at the NFL level. But something I got to know, not necessarily NFL related, actually not at all NFL related, but it's March Madness. Who you got?
Oh, well, I know everyone wants to pick Duke for personal reasons. Duke is like my version of the Dallas Cowboys. On top of that, then me, I'm a contrarian at heart, so everyone's saying why not me. So, I went through the brackets with my son this evening, filled out a couple of them. I'm going to pitch my bet and say there are a couple teams I think have the ability to win it all. Gonzaga, of course, I know they lost their tournament to St. Mary's, but I think that's a little bit of a blip. I like the way North Carolina played, especially against Duke in the ACC semifinals. A couple shots fall or calls go here or there. I think they win that game. And then a couple other teams a little further down. Tennessee, I think they played well all year in a tough SEC. I think got things fall their way in their brackets. And then too, you might want to keep your eye. I don't know if they can pull it off, but they played really well this year. Kelvin Sampson's a good coach. Keep your eye on the Houston Cougars. I don't have the guts to pull the trigger. They're going to win it all, but maybe if you do and you want to take a shot on a little bit less of a favorite in Vegas, that might be one team to keep your eyes on. I will say this, I don't think any teams from my home state of New Jersey are going to win it all. Seton Hall, Fairleigh Dickinson. I'll go on a limb and say Fairleigh Dickinson won't win a game, but Seton Hall might win a game or two. But that's about all I got for you. But I think too, Texas Tech's another team to watch out for. They might surprise, but honestly, Charles, I think if you go with a 1 or 2 seed, do the proverbial chalk, you should be all right. Don't try and outthink anything. Don't try and find the next one in Chicago. The value is picking the winner, but I'm not any good at that either.
Yeah, I'm not pulling for UNC to go all the way because, I'm a Tar Heels fan from way back. But, let's talk about, you mentioned the Dallas Cowboys. One thing, though, with Dallas, they just picked up Randall Cobb, who was Aaron Rodgers' favorite target there in Green Bay for a lot of years. But when we look at that whole thing, now they got Amari Cooper. They look like they're about to maybe do something. We'll see what they do next year. Will Zeke get back on track, and Prescott and all those guys. But if we look at Oakland, remember, Oakland last year was pretty much a disaster. But when we look at what they did at the wide receiver position, they picked up Antonio Brown and got rid of Amari Cooper, but they got a first-round pick for Cooper. So basically, for a 3rd and 5th rounder, they upgraded to from Amari Cooper to Antonio Brown and a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, I mean,
so, yeah.
We ripped him a lot, but yeah, he on that one, and Mike Mayock too, who's now the GM. They did a good job. Yeah, I completely agree. Now, the bigger issue is...
And they got Tyrell Williams, too, who's a good receiver, played for the Los Angeles Chargers last year, but now they got him, too.
Yeah, the San Diego Chargers in LA. But, yeah, I think the bigger issue is, are you going to address your offensive and defensive line and your defensive secondary? I know they got Joyner from the Rams, but those were polls last year. And is Derek Carr your quarterback? Is he your long-term quarterback? Is he the quarterback who looked completely befuddled and disillusioned last year under Gruden's offense, or is he the quarterback of a few years ago that led the Rangers to the playoffs? I'm not sure, but we know how Gruden wears down his quarterback, so
yeah,
something to keep your eye on there. I'm sure they'll give him one more shot this year and evaluate, but yeah, I think that's the bigger issue right there. Carr's got the weapons, but let's see if they've got the talent around them separate of wide receivers.
Well, let's remember, John Gruden won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson at quarterback, so I think he can pretty much work miracles there.
Yeah, he can, but his thing is, can he develop the young quarterback? I know he did it early in his career.
Right.
Different league, it's a different kind of offense. I know he's a workaholic. I know from watching those ESPN shows, it's good at evaluating college quarterbacks. But yeah, I think at this point, it's more a question of the way he works with his quarterbacks, and does he really have the eye for personnel, or is he going to defer to Mike Mayock?
Exactly. And also, late signing just happened a day ago, I believe, was Vontaze Burfict. We'll call him a thug linebacker from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's now going to Oakland. He's going to be playing on the same team with Antonio Brown. Brown tweeted out that it's all well and good. And to me, the Cincinnati Bengals, they got rid of Burfict, but they did it, 3 years too late? They should have cut him and Pac-Man Jones when they combined to basically blow that playoff win over the Steelers in the final moments. And you look at the Bengals have done nothing but go downhill since then, and now they finally cut Burfict. So we'll see what he does there on Oakland. I think, though, Gruden is the kind of coach who, when Burfict goes there, I don't think Gruden is going to take a whole lot of nonsense from him. So it's like one of those things, play hard, play tough, give it your all, but any of that foolishness, and you're done. I think that's the way it's going to be there in Oakland.
Yeah, I agree. And in that case, we'll say be less of a perfect fit, right?
Oh, my goodness. Must be time to end the show on that one, man.
Perfect Strangers reference.
All righty. Hey, folks, remember the show is all unscripted here. We don't really do a whole lot of pre-production or anything. I've got my notes. Chris has his notes there. And remember, we don't have the Elias Sports Bureau in our ear giving us stats or anything like that. So, remember, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. That's Chris Lardieri. You can follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris L Sports. And, Chris, before we sign off, do you have some final words?
Yeah, the Oakland meetings are in Phoenix this weekend, and rumor has it the competition committee will take up a couple proposals, one from the Chiefs and Andy Reid, which I wholeheartedly support. In the playoffs, both teams should touch the ball in overtime. I don't care. I don't care the way it is in the regular season. But do or die time. And I want to see Pat Mahomes touch that ball once. And the Chiefs won that coin flip and drove the field for a touchdown. I'm sure Bill Belichick will be pushing for this rule change. And then number two, the Saints proposal, the pass interference and helmet-to-helmet that was never called in the NFC Championship. Will they put this proverbial eye in the sky, extra rep in to overturn blown calls, missed calls, whatever? Will it only be for the playoffs? Look, I think football fans want this. Whether the league does it or not is another story, but these are two very valid proposals to keep your eyes on, and hopefully the league wakes up and takes them into consideration.
Well, so I guess the key to getting overtime rules changed is you have to have a dynamic quarterback not touch the ball in overtime, because it used to be for a long time that all you had to do was get any kind of score in overtime and you won the game, even if it was a field goal. Now, when Brett Favre didn't get a chance to touch the ball when he was playing in that playoff game, I believe it was against the Saints, and the Saints won that in overtime, but they're saying, oh, well, Favre should have gotten a chance to touch the ball. Now they say, well, if you get a touchdown, unless you get a touchdown, they get a chance. Now Mahomes didn't get a chance to touch the ball, so they're saying, well, wait a minute. Now you got to get a chance to touch the ball no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always felt this way. I like what college does. I mean, I don't think we'll ever go to that, but the bottom line is both teams get the ball won.
Or maybe it's a different rule for playoffs. Could we do that?
For that, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? You don't want these guys along.
Right.
You want them to hurt in overtime, or who knows, they may just end up and quit and play for the time, like the NHL. But no, I say just put it in for playoffs.
Okay.
You're a die game. I think it's only fair. I don't think a coin flip should determine the game. When you say, oh, the defense should be able to stop them. Well, guess what? The Kansas City and New England defenses were spent with a big back and forth second half. I mean, there's only so much those guys can do after they played 60 minutes of football. So let's do something about it. I mean, you want to do like soccer and have it decided on penalty kicks?
Yeah.
Just have 5 field goals with 5 different players taking them. I don't know.
All right, everybody. So thank you for joining us. Remember, the show is NFL Football Talk. We'll be back in about another month. The NFL Draft is the next significant date here. So that's on April 25th. So look for us either before or right after that. You can find us on iTunes, or you can find us on the Podbean app. Just go ahead and download that app to your smartphone. And remember, it's Inside Sports. The show is NFL Football Talk. So for Mr. Chris Lardieri, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch up with you soon.